Yeah,
everyone. But
and
the
we
thing is,
received.
I wanted to make the talk a bit more cooperative.
Yeah,
I sent you a message about how I imagine it being cooperative.
yeah.
And so maybe we can coordinate. I have three screens in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
One, I'm looking at the Google document where people, if you're familiar with Google Documents, you can just
Yeah,
hit the link. I'll put a link on Zoom chat, and you can actually go on there and comment on something where you would require or where you need a clarification. You'd like me to maybe rephrase something that's not easily understood by you. And maybe someone else has a similar question, so might as well get it out of the way.
mm-hmm.
I would like this whole talk to be something like how remote work should be, how
Yeah,
we should all collaborate with each other. You're a
yeah,
community leader as well, Maria, and thank you for
yeah.
setting this up.
Thank
We
you.
actually we have that in common. As I'll go through my little script, I can actually
Mm-hmm.
read this Google document. Is my
Okay.
basic script.
Phoebe,
You'll
give
understand.
me
Yeah,
1 second. Let me introduce you properly, and then
sure.
I'll pass the microphone, the floor to you. So
All
we're
right.
also on Facebook Live. So welcome everybody, and welcome to another guest at home virtual meetup. Today with us we have Phoebus Yiannopoulos, and his talk will be around staying productive, healthy, and organized in a remote work setting. So Phoebus, from my understanding, you're a freelancer, not so sure as a digital nomad. I mean, you get to work remote quite often, so you'll be sharing with us the pros and the cons. And as I said before we went live and before everybody joining in, I saw a very cool community where you belong, where you're also a member, pangeon.com, which all freelancers and digital nomads get to meet and work. It's a cool community, online community. So tell us a little bit about your experience there, and welcome. And you have your 30 minutes, and then we'll ask everybody to engage in the conversation with Phoebus, myself, and the rest of the guests.
All
Phoebus, the
right.
floor is yours.
Okay. Is my audio okay? Is it too loud? Is
Yep.
it too okay?
Yep.
Perfect. First of all, I want to say, Maria, thank you for setting this up, but I'm not affiliated with Pangeo.com. I'm just a member of the community. And actually, I'm a very inactive member of the community. As I'll very quickly uh, let you guys in on. So first things first, I'll take you back on my journey as a young professional up to today. So my experience with remote work actually begins shortly after I heard that beautiful cacophonous song that modems say to each other to make sure you're online and connected to the internet. So I've heard it so many times that if need be, I think I'd probably pass the protocol checks and get online, even if my modem broke down. So the date when I actually joined the internet community, I think it was 95 when I got my second computer. 1 second, let me, okay. And yeah, I was 10 years old. And my first computer was actually a gift by a close friend, a German friend. And my second experience with a computer, my first experience was watching someone play a game when I was 5. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Look at all these things going around. And my brain really absorbed all those things. So I destroyed Hans's computer, I messed up a couple of his Excel files. And then soon after, I actually figured out how Windows 3.1 worked. And I was very kind of taken by how computers work. And a couple of years down the road, he actually gifted me the laptop. And that was basically my beginning in computers and being an enthusiast. So as I also wrote in my text, beware of tangents. There may be many. And it's also a trick for me to see if you're paying attention. So if I see any 1 second, any questions about a tangent or a reminder, oh, Phoebus, you're way too far on tangent when you're saying what you're saying, I know you're paying attention. So anyway, so back in 95 then, I was using the internet already working remotely in a sense, because like any graphic designer, we inspire each other and we rip off ideas graphically from one another. And as I say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So that was my first actual real use of the internet and working remotely and working with other people. And being the curious kid that I was, it didn't take long to find and join an early Greek charter community called GRNet. I was a regular there and I was helping out with the network. And we also founded a second network that was later called Hellenic Net. Some of you may have been users, and you may know it better as mirc.gr. We named it like that because it was the most popular IRC client. And for most people, MRC was IRC. Although between us techies, we all laughed when people thought MRC was IRC. So why is this guy talking about this IRC thing, and what does it stand for again? Okay, IRC stands for Internet Relay Chat. It's one of the earlier tools for academic collaboration online, and my first experience in remote work. It was developed by Finnish universities with purpose to collaborate on the early internet. I think it was built November 1988. I was a toddler on the beach then, like back there. So, okay, enough about tech history and background. What can we use today? Not yet, friends. Let's not rush ahead. Things are a bit more serious today, as where there's value, there's incentive, and where there's incentive, security risks lurk. Before you can think about working from home, you need to upgrade your security stack and security mindset. Even if your CTO and his team, CTO is Chief Technical Officer, sorry for the jargon, is stuck at the office or cleverly automating everything and working from where I'm supposed to be, the beach. Without his and his team's preparation, it can be risky to work remotely, depending, of course, on your industry and how important it is to keep a handle on things. This can probably be a talk in itself or a consult with your trusted professionals, and you should do that. And I would highly recommend asking around. So if you have one professional that you trust about your technology and security issues, you should probably ask a couple more just to make sure. This is a difficult problem to solve, even for security-oriented groups and companies that claim it is solved, it isn't solved. So working remotely, in a sense, is actually a bit risky for you, for your intellectual property, assets, and all the things, many different kinds of attacks that can happen. If you have questions and interest in that, I can give you some hints, some ways to overcome, but it's not a catch-all. Let's pretend then that the security portion of this endeavor is covered. Next up, we have managerial stuff. Of course, communication in both the formal and the informal space, as we are humans and not robots, and we rely on others and those water-cooled talks to balance the challenges at work, learn from one another, and work together as a team. Here, I briefly say it's hard to manage people and projects remotely. There's a big upside to a conference room and many misunderstandings that can be solved with a very quick meeting, but there are ways to do most of this online, especially today, compared to 1995, when I started. And I'll get right to it. Use marked screenshots whenever possible, paired with clear, edited explanation of the task or feedback. What I mean by this is that it should make sense outside of your own head. Make sure there's enough support information that you consider self-explanatory. It's not. It will save you back and forth and future questions. If you know the team members really well, then you will likely know more about how they think, what the role is in the organization, and how things look from their side of things, from their role. So let's say it's a programmer. Okay, you give them a task. The programmer thinks differently. They analyze problems differently. They think differently than you, and that's a plus. Every member has their own plus that they bring to a team. So next requirement, if you don't know your people well, get to know them. A way that works online and offline for this is team building exercises. Without wasted jargon, games will do fine for this. Any kind of game. Find something that you all love. So do like a quick survey with your team and say, okay, do you guys like playing chess or bridge or something? But find a team game as much as possible that requires collaboration, and play it in such a way that you have to communicate with each other and you have to collaborate as a team. The way this works is that we pick up a lot of information on how we each operate and how we cooperate and how we like to work. We find out strong points and weaknesses, in each other and can become better at editing our communication for the right team or team member. Okay, all right, next up, focus mode. A lot of work is done best and depending on the task when individual members have the ability to work on things separately without being interrupted. This can be better remotely or worse depending on each person's home or temporary office setting. Some people like to work in a busy cafe, for example, others prefer complete isolation. I think it also depends on what you're working on, as it majorly defines the best tools to use and the best setting. How to make sure you're given your focus mode zone. So what I mean by that is communicate well to your roommates of any variety, or cohabitors, maybe your wife, your girlfriend, your family, your flatmates, that during a particular time, let's say 8 to 5 p.m., you're not to be bothered by any cohabitor or pets up until a specific time or event. It can be hard for others to understand that. So you need to really get across well, respectfully, and say that in this time between 8 and 5 p.m., I'm actually at the office. You maybe see me sitting here on my desk, but I'm not here in my desk. Don't be confused. I'm actually at the office. So I need to be fully focused on what I'm doing. Otherwise, distractions are costly, especially with more complex roles that build entire models up in their heads. These can go poof if even asked the question. So like the question can be usually, what are you doing? And by just trying to think about how to answer this question, your whole kind of mindset and productivity that was just about to ensue when you solved an equation or a problem or whatever your job is gone. Okay, hopefully I'm not talking too fast. If I'm talking too fast, you can like use the clap hands thing on Zoom, so I know to slow down. It's okay. Everyone has different speeds of understanding information. And I'm a little anxious or excited about this Zoom talk, so I may be talking a little faster than usual. Sorry about that. Okay, so now we've reached the part where we're talking about the squishy bit. So that's you. You need to take care of yourself. You need to know yourself. You need to also schedule yourself in order to perform your best. So whether you're working remotely or at the office, depending on the company, this can be better at the office, or depending on the home temp office situation, you may be better there. I'll speed run you through the basics. And no, I do not think you can have this, not by much. And not without sacrificing in the quality of your work today, tomorrow, and months after that. If what you seek is unstoppable, stability, productivity, and some balance, then listen carefully to these portions, to these points. Sleep. Yes, it's way underrated. We all wish we could sleep less, do more. There's a million reasons, heavily backed by medical science, and I can go into great detail about this. I'll touch on two key ones. Immune system function, so you get sick less, so you have more time to actually sleep. And more important for our remote work, brain function and learning. Without boring you about with a neurobiological basis for memory and LTP, long-term potentiation, that's how memory works, we need good sleeping habits for our brain to do its magic and to hit save on our work. So when you learn something, if you have a good night's rest, actually, it's more likely that you remember it. I can talk a lot more about this depending on questions. Diet. Eat well. Don't overeat. Don't stress eat. I'm also, suffering from this. Sometimes I stress it a little bit that I need to keep watch on myself. A varied diet with enough vitamins and macronutrients will do. Just about any diet almost. But don't skip on this. And don't go all fast food saves time all the time. Sometimes it's okay. For more information, talk to a GP, your doctor, or a dietitian. You'll thank me later. Exercise. Schedule a moderate amount of cardio and any activities you enjoy that have about the same effect. Exercise doesn't have to suck. If it does, you're probably doing something you don't enjoy. Top tip, long walks in the park help handle both stress and let our minds figure out the answers to the problems we're working on. So there's actually an added benefit for remote work. And walking around the beach, perfect. You can feel that sand in your toes. I think that has a stress handling effect as well. Keep a constructive mindset. Our minds are built to survive in the jungle. Yet, for the most part, we no longer live in one. So water the thoughts that provide answers to problems. Give the others the least attention you're able to. Don't even try not to think something. Just think something better, something that helps you out of the situation, this day, this problem. Once that is better underway, we can go back to the previous focus step. Eliminating distractions. Working remotely or from anywhere is often riddled with similar challenges, behavioral or situational distractors. Whether it is your need to check socials, mails outside the window, start creating crunch time zones with zero distractions. Phone on silent and away, all distractions handled. Email to critical only. It pays to know how to filter your email, or completely off. Or if you have someone on your team able to hold your communications and just bother you when it's absolutely necessary. Now, to bring on the big, bad boss level problem to the table and show it who's boss. If you're still unsure how to do this, ask away. Chances are I or others in the community have faced a similar problem, a similar demon to overcome. So I think during these times and any times really, we should all try to help one another in the community, even competitors, you cutthroats. The market is big enough for us all. Besides, once you have enough and more than we ever need, it's just a score game. And you need to stop and think about how to give back more. So at this point, this is basically my introduction. And I'm going to look all over, and maybe Maria or others in the community that are joined with us right now can help me with questions. So I'll pick up and see which areas you'd like me to focus on more.
Awesome. Thank you, Phoebus, for that. We also have people following us as usual on Facebook Live. And I've also hit that live button on my own profile. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself and join us, or drop a question on Facebook Live. So yeah, Phoebus, I mean, tell us, how long have you been working remote? What have been some of your challenges? What has worked well? How did you find a good balance? How long time did it take you to find a balance? I mean, all of us this past couple of months with COVID, we've been obliged to work from home. It's been a sudden change to many of us. As you mentioned, you mentioned some very cool topics, from eating well, sleeping well, exercising, taking breaks, keeping creative, not allowing too many distractions around you. I mean, even me, myself, it took me at least a good 10 days to maybe 2 weeks to keep a good balance between work and home and so on. But yeah, share a couple of things with us, and then let's open for the community. Be more than happy to hear your questions also.
Sure. I guess I could share a bit more of my background. I started being a young professional when my mother moved to this Western Greek town called Napatos, and she was responsible for setting up a TV station. It was originally a radio station. And I had already begun my hobby of wasting way too much time on the computer. And so my mom kept asking me for computer questions. I kept going by the office and helping her. People kept seeing me helping her. And then they kept giving me more things to do. In the end, I was best friends with studio staff. My late friend, Dimitris, who sadly he passed to cancer, hence my kind of difficulty with that. We were in the studio every day, all day. I saw him more than his own daughters. And I worked with him. I worked with one of the investors and owners who is also an engineer. And I worked on PCs, Amiga computers, who I think were amazing at the time. And I think Amigas actually were ahead of everyone else. And then I don't know what they did. Maybe they decided being at the beach was more important than being rich, and they just quit the sport or something. I had my start out as a graphic designer was basically on the Amiga. I found out how to do animation, how to do end credits, how to do basically anything that was asked of me. And people were amazed by being able to actually handle all of this. And in the end, they just gave me the keys to the station. And I would show up with a Pita Gyro in one hand, the keys in the other hand, get in, and I would do program flow single-handedly. Yes, single-handedly. So using both video editing equipment, live streaming or casting equipment, and all that kind of stuff. I also help with the radio a little bit, automating the program and all that kind of fun stuff. So after that, my mom, seeing a lot of demand for ads, video ads, sound spots, cards, and all that kind of stuff, we opened up an ad office in Western Greece, which was doing really well. We're doing a lot of work, and she was bringing in the clients, and I was doing everything behind the curtain, all the technical stuff, all the, making up mock designs and all that kind of stuff. So I started early, and I've been working ever since. I wasn't so much a freelancer, as I was mostly and always working with groups. I've started 2 web hosting companies, one based in US. We closed that up, and we opened another one in Canada. The first one was called Cinder Hosting. You Google gurus will find it very quickly. The second one was called CA Linux Systems, so Canadian Linux Systems. First one was on Slackware Linux. The other one, we went with Red Hat, and it never let us down. And Dell servers are amazing. There's some tech jargon, sorry about that. So I've changed my role often in how I work and what I was working in. And I think the biggest reason is I just got bored. I'm very interested in technology. I learn fast. I also forget fast. This is my problem, is I need to, when I learn something, I need to write very good notes on how to use it, what are the key benefits to particular technological thing, tech stack, what we call. And then I forget it, and then I move on to something else, and I move on to, actually, I quit this sport of being a hardcore techie guy, and I got a bit into security. First of all, through reverse engineering. So that's basically, okay, some of you out there, you like free programs. Some companies don't want to give you free programs. That's how I started. My mentor was Fravia Plus. Some of you may know him. Is one of the big reverse engineers out there. And later on, my curiosity took me to also network stuff, and you know how it goes. But I quit the sport when I was 18, and I thought, hey, technology is a tool, something that we need to use to help people. It's not a goal. And I was not sleeping very much and being very excited about this stuff. So I decided to actually take a break, go back, finish my education, because I actually dropped out when I was 16. So I finished my education as an adult in Canada by 18. And I got all the university pedigrees and stuff like that. Although I started as an autodidact that was high on technology. So where am I going with all this? You can do almost anything remotely. And actually, it amazes me how much information we have today and how well curated information compared to back then. Back then, I had to actually really even create a web spider to go find me some particular type of information I was looking for. Now, you basically hit Google, and if you're decent enough with like maybe even getting to the 3rd page, which not so many people make it to, you can find most everything there. In high quality, in high density, we have open courseware. Anything you want to study is online. If you don't care about the pedigree, you can just study it. You can just do whatever you want. But despite all that, Maria, I notice an effect that most people are using the internet now as another TV. And this to me, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I would like to help change that. And I'm open to ideas on that note. I don't see any questions. Do we have any more questions on any of the headings or
We do.
parts of the
Thano
talk?
has raised his hand, so Thano, go ahead.
Okay.
Hi, it was very interesting, and thank you for all the advice, which I can confirm is true only because it fails me every time I don't do exactly what you said, especially on sleep and focusing and not letting distractions interfere. And food. I wanted to say about Amiga that I think the reason they disappeared is because of copyright disputes with their chips. if I remember correctly. And yes, you were very lucky to get your hands on one. It was the dream back then. Thank you.
So, Thanos, did you actually have a question, or did I miss your question? Your question was more about...
just a comment. Just a comment.
Okay. Okay,
And
Elpida from Zoom chat has a question. Is that what you're trying to talk to me about?
Elpida,
Okay.
would you like to join us, Elpida? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Welcome.
Hi, I would like to ask Phoebus if changing jobs is something that, if you can do something to balance your stress while you were changing jobs, because it's not an easy thing to change jobs in technology, and it often requires a lot of personal work. And you have to work additionally during weekends and after your office job in order to achieve this. So when you are in a period that you want to change your knowledge and move to another tech job, do you follow a special schedule? Do you do more of relaxing, exercising? How do you handle this?
Okay, thank you, Elpida, for the question. It's very specific. I'll say that for sure you can't skip on sleep, diet, exercise, or taking care of yourself mentally as well. If you have a very high stress job, I would strongly recommend taking care of more of your mental well-being, because your mind is your key tool that you have to use to make it through the day. So you rack your brain to find solutions, and your brain then needs some extra time to take a chiller. So if you like walking, I think walking is a great way to both de-stress, and I would recommend as an extra benefit walking in a green space with lots of green around you, because we have evolved living these kinds of environments, and this is more salient, more familiar to our brain and how we've grown up as a species. And so I think this is going to relax you the most. If you find that this is not enough for you, I think it's worth looking more into maybe some basic meditation, some basic breathing exercises. I can give you a very simple breathing recipe right now, which will work for most people. Is a 4-second inhale, 2-second hold, and a 4-second exhale. You can modify this to your own body by a few seconds. Now, if you train this on a loop, and I take it you're a very techie person, so if you put this on a loop and your brain kind of automatically then does this for you, it has an added benefit that you can perform at the top of your game in any setting. And also when you're speaking, public speaking, or you're in a stressful setting, no matter what happens in your environment, you know that you have your breath to rely on. Your breath is on a rhythm. So let the world blow up to pieces. You will continue to function highly. And added to all of that, I think you need to maybe do some more meditation. Meditation is a very effective tool, but it's very hard for it to become effective. So most people actually quit before it becomes effective, before it shows that it can help them. And I would argue just for a breathing meditation. Anything else is too complex, and it's more important for your brain and your body to regulate its rhythms than to focus on more advanced topics in meditation, some of which are not really backed by the evidence yet. I hope that covers your questions. If not, I'm open to follow-ups as well.
Well, I would say that it's usually meditation for me, what is working so far. So you definitely got this. And I think the worst part is that I started and then I quit because I think it's enough, and then I really need it, so I start again. So maybe I should focus more on that. Thank you for your answer.
Oh, you're very welcome. There are a few apps on phones, and actually, even I personally have a device from Interaction. I don't work for them, but I use this device called the Muse. And what this is basically a portable EEG. And what an EEG does is it has some electrodes on your skull and it takes recordings of the electrical activity. Now, it only has seven points of EEG, so this is not for medical use. But through clever algorithms, it can deduce what situation your brain is in, and to some level, if your meditation is actually working. And it's important to have this feedback loop where you see the result of your meditation. Otherwise, it's very easy to just drop out and not use it again. So that's a very useful device for people who have more trouble meditating. And I would recommend it to people who have a very high stress job. They can't make the time, and it's harder for them to keep track of their progress. It also has lots of different meditation exercises, but I would again recommend sticking with breathing meditation because that has more academic backing. I'm open to any other questions, but anyway.
Awesome. The rest of our guests, would you like to say any question or add-ons you like to unmute yourselves? Go ahead.
Hi, I think the general message that you're getting across to everyone here is actually that you need to look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, you're going to fall over. If you fall over, whether you're working in a company or as an individual at home or in a remote office, you need to be able to do your job. You can't do that if you don't look after yourself. And where a lot of people are stuck at home, they don't actually have that sort of thing. Oh, I need to go and exercise. I need to go and eat. Oh, look, I'm getting a bit fat. So, yeah. I mean, what are other people's viewpoints? Come on, speak up here. It's interaction.
Exactly. Thank you, Ron. It came to me that I'm also a military officer in Greece. Everyone has to do army duty. I chose to become an officer, so that's very hard training. And I wanted to test myself. I also did it on purpose because I'm very lazy with exercise. I know I'm not taking my own advice, but I find ways to push myself to do the exercise. And one way to push myself to do the exercise was to do the military officer program. It kicked my butt, quite literally. Okay, some advice from the army that works really well, and I think it may work really well also in a remote setting. So you start your day, do some hard things in the morning, do some things that may be routine and actually you don't appreciate them much. So for example, this can be as simple as making your bed. So what's the trick to making your bed in the army? Why are those army heads so stuck on making your bed? Here's the trick. You wake up, you make your bed. It doesn't have to be perfect army style. No officer is going to come by and like drop a ball on it and see if it bounces. That's fine. The reason why they're doing that is because you gain confidence by doing more things in the morning. So you did this one task, you accomplished it, you gain a tiny boost of confidence, and you use that to take on the next task. And you know yourself best. So I don't know which task you should take on next, but I think it should be gradual. So you start, you make breakfast, you take care of yourself, you give yourself some time to actually wake up and face the world, to feel like you're truly awake. And maybe there's other things in there that would work for you personally that you can explore. You can try some things, Google some things, what works best to really feel awake in the morning. Then I would suggest to ask yourself the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? I mean, what does this give me aside from, okay, it pays the rent? Is this enough? Find something in what you're doing that is actually really exciting, that you look forward to. And maybe I would use that as the first step to build even more confidence, some boost, and psych yourself to do your best in the more difficult tasks. And then I would say, okay, maybe now it's time to take on the biggest problem in the day, right? Because for most people, after let's say an hour and a half, most people, they reach their peak productivity, they're more focused, you can push the hardest. Okay, so when you're pushing the hardest, put the biggest problem in front of you. Get as much of it as you can done, keep notes. If you can finish it, it's okay. And then you can move on to easier tasks and maybe even managerial tasks and other things as you get back down from your top productivity curve. And then I think you should take a break. It can be a short break. It can be 10 minutes. again, you know yourself best, so there's no like exact recipe. Although there is an exact recipe, if it benefits you you benefit a lot from taking a nap. Again, this differs for some people. So for taking a nap, the actual advice for most people is 20 minutes max. So here's what happens. There's a whole science of sleep. Sleep works with stages. So stage 1 basically is close to being awake. If you give yourself 20 minutes, you go to stage 1 and touching stage 2, which gives you enough of a refresher where your brain, racking your brain, especially if you have a very hard job, very high stress, it gives you enough of a refresh to be able to have another 3 hours of high productivity and then maybe another break. So your first break, I would think would probably best be some form of quick exercise, some form of maybe going outside, reconnecting a bit with nature, looking at some greenery, stuff like that. And I would say your second break, where you have a bit more tiredness, you've been awake much longer, can be that 20-minute nap. And then you have another iteration, maybe of 2 hours, because by now you're already more tired. I could talk about this for a long time. I don't know how much more detail you guys want on this stuff. Mm-hmm. If this is interesting and everyone is, you can use the clapped hands or the mm-hmm. Emotions on reactions on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we hear it quite often, Phoebus.
Okay.
That working remote means we need to be disciplined enough to keep all our tasks in order and at the same time make sure we have a good balance. I saw Spiros here, Spiro Panayotidou.
Can I interrupt you before we pass it on? I wouldn't agree with the word discipline. Let me quickly say reason why. I think we should look at ourselves in the mirror in the morning as if we're looking at our young children with love, caringly, and we have to wonder, what does this young child, which is me in the mirror, what does this child need to flourish? So by any means, this is not the military, it's your life, and you should design your life in a way that you're comfortable and productive as well, but not in a way that you think you're in a boot camp. And there is no other way to be productive but be in a boot camp. That's my position on that. We can go on to other questions.
Let's not forget here, Phoebus, that everybody, most of us, those of us that have never worked from home, work remote, we were suddenly forced to change from work to home. And many of us being at home, you're not only responsible for the responsibilities of work, but also of home. So what would be your 3 tips for somebody who's facing those kind of challenges, from being forced to suddenly take their work home and need to deal with everything, and at the same time keep a good balance, keep a good, have a good outcome, offer a good outcome, be creative, and at the same time keep a good fairness and balance between home and work?
Okay, that's a very good question, Maria. I think you're insinuating, what do we do about people who have families or who have a home environment that's a bit more challenging? And I think I covered a little bit of that in my introduction. I think it's very important to communicate very well with the people that you cohabitate. I think that conflict is a natural part of life, and I think that it would make a lot of sense if we became better at constructively handling our respective conflicts. So that's one part of the answer, and I can go deeper into it. The bigger part of the answer, though, and the real answer to this, is scheduling. So once you have a good basis for communication with your team, your group at home, your pack, whatever you want to call it, or your roommates, if it's like a startup, they all live at home, there's a few people in that situation. Then you can start looking at what works. So then there's the realities of life, as you say, whether it is kids or pets or this or that or stuff that needs to happen. I would suggest all of these details to be footprinted on a calendar, right? With the ones that can't be moved, all these color coded, and then you can discuss the ones that can't be moved, and you can find an acceptable medium, whereas most of the group is productive and happy with the setting.
Mhm.
How this would work, it depends on each family, but I think the most important part of this is organizational skills. And I think there's a lot of material online on how to be better at scheduling, how to be better at making the most out of your day. These are real skills, and I think it will pay dividends if people actually focus more and read more on scheduling skills. So this is part of the problem. The other part is, and it's a bit of their, it's a new problem. It's cabin fever, right? You're stuck at home with some people. And I think we've done lots of research on this, even for people that will go into space. And the issues are common. No matter how much you like the other person that you're with, at some point, they're going to get on your nerves. So I think it takes a, fine self-management. So figuring out your emotions, managing your emotions, communicating your emotions with others, figuring out, and the question is, in every conflict, what do we each want? So what does each party want? How does each party feel about the solution? And giving each other the time and the space to really think about a proposed idea. Should we do something this way? Does it work if we have lunch at 1, so I can have my meeting at 12 and finish up with the preparation and all that kind of stuff? So I would say, again, to reiterate, write every detail on the calendar, and then start to negotiate nicely with each other about and be creative, right? You have to play a bit with this, because the best problem solving comes from pure creativity. So thinking outside of the box, thinking about a solution that you haven't thought about before. There's so many solutions, and so many of those solutions become great companies and great startups because they solve real human problems, right? This is how to make money.
Mhm.
Is the answer good enough? Would you like some more detail in some area? Let me know.
Yep, that's good. I'm covered. I'd like to hear a bit more about our guests, how they've experienced this last couple of months with COVID, couple of challenges that they faced, maybe a couple of solutions that they figured out on their own, or if you want to share anything with the rest of us, or ask for any tips, either from Phoebus or even just turning it into a conversation. We can also learn from each other and what worked for each one of us. I mean, I can say for myself that the first 2 weeks, as I mentioned at the beginning, were quite chaotic, trying to fit everything in. There were days that I was waking up and with my pajamas all day long and not even managing to eat or exercise. But I realized that I became a lot more productive when I became more strict with myself and about myself, and woke up in the morning, had a shower, got dressed, even though I wasn't leaving the house, and structured my day in such a way into zones, where I had zones where I was responsible for my work, for family, for cooking, for spending some time on myself, and so on. And it ended up working a lot better, better outcome, a lot more creative. So yeah, what do our guests have to say or share or ask?
Well, from my point of view, I would slightly disagree with you there. There has to be a level of discipline, self-discipline, when you're looking at something like this, because otherwise you're just going to be sitting in your pajamas all day, like Maria said, and not doing anything. And some tips that I've got, there's different time management that I've used. If I'm hitting against a brick wall, I operate, because I'm running a home as well, like Maria said, the half-hour principle. You take a job that you don't necessarily like doing, like cleaning up the kitchen and washing up. You do it for half an hour. You may listen to an audio book, a radio podcast, something like whatever, but you do it for half an hour. Doesn't matter if you finish, half an hour of work. Because whilst I'm working here, my kitchen's getting dirty. Whilst, you need to clean up the things and keep your home environment. So a level of discipline, and the, napping you're talking about, that's in Darren Brown's book, Isaac Newton. They all have the nap, which revitalizes yourself, because you need your energy, you need your self-discipline. I mean, those are things that I've noticed. What about other members of the group here?
I would agree with a lot that's been said. The one thing I think that's very important is acceptance. In other words, if you can't go out and you can't move the way you did before, in other words, your life has changed, it's gone about turn, you have to accept it and you have to work around it or with it. And one thing also that I would mention, it depends on your age group. So, you know, different age groups meet this challenge in different ways, because we're in our mid-60s. So we would treat what we're told by the officials, et cetera, maybe in a slightly different way. I'm not saying that any other age groups would not behave, but acceptance is very important. Discipline with a small d is important, and changing your day-to-day environment. If you're in a box in a hotel room for a week, 2 weeks, and you travel a lot, you need to find things to do when there's quiet time. So the worst thing to do is to say, oh, this is unfair, everybody's against me, get the hankies out and start crying. So I think it's very important to look at the piece of string. How long is it? Segment it, do what you think is good for you and what you need to do as well. There has to be the terminology that the military like to use. The first bloody thing you should do is make your bloody bed in the morning. And that's the way things start, which is actually quite good, because that's a form of discipline. You've got something out of the way, you can be proud of that. Then things seem to slot. The other thing you have to accept is that you will have downtime. So there were times when I'd had enough. I said to my boss, I need to go out for a walk. And she said, well, you're not allowed to go out for a walk. So I said, okay. I dealt with it in another way. You know, I went and messed around with the car or did something that was totally useless in the big scheme of things. Didn't stop the world going round, but at least it got rid of that little bit of angst. So, you know, it's very important to also stay, because we're retired. I don't have to go out or work to pay a mortgage. You guys, you lovely youngsters, you do, okay? So it's a different mentality, different approach. But at the same time, I could say I'm not going to join this talk, but I do join the talks as much as I can. And okay, I was a bit late to this one, but I think it's important to keep certain things ticking over as before. So that's what I've recommended to myself since I retired. There was no way I was going to say, right, this is great, man. Let's get the mat out and lie on the beach every single day, which you can't do anyway. You get bored. So that would be my advice. 3 pieces of advice. Don't give in to monotony. Change things. And if you want to have a good argument or disagreement, have one. But, you know, don't go to sleep on it. That's me done.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Charles. Do we have any more questions from our crowd before we let Phoebus go back to his Monday afternoon? It's a long weekend. Monday afternoon rest. Phoebus, is there anything else you would like to add?
I would like to respond both to Ray and Charles and say that a lot of what they said is actually complementary. I like a better phrasing. I mean, I do believe in discipline, but I do believe more in the other concept, which Charles spent more time on, which is acceptance. So true acceptance is understanding the reality that you find yourself in, what the dynamics are in this reality. And once you really accept it and you stop fighting it, then you can find ways to make that reality work for you. So the other thing is, okay, yes, you need a bit of organization. I'm not going to call discipline, it's not my wording. I prefer organization. So, you know, doing tasks that help you stay at your best, take care of your basic needs and all that kind of stuff. And you can do these tasks as both me, Ron, and Charles agree that the military system has some wisdom behind it, making tasks in early in the day. You feel accomplishment, you feel that boost. They help you with the other tasks, getting more creativity, depending on the problem. Now, when you've been working on a problem for a long time, whatever that problem may be, whether you're a designer, whether you're a programmer, whether you're a scientist, an engineer, when you've been staring at the problem long enough, then you feel really time-wise, and you feel it in your bones that you're not making progress. It's a good time to actually take a break and do a simple task. Charles goes and repairs his car. You could do the dishes. You could, mop the house, or do something that actually it gives your brain a refresh, and it takes care of your basic needs. And you can ride that high of boost productivity. So this is a good way. I use that myself when I've exhausted myself and I'm not making any further progress on a particular problem. I take a break to do something else useful that's a different task altogether. Usually I work best if, let's say I'm doing code analysis. I'll do something that's more graphical. I'll do something that's of a different nature. It uses different parts of my head. And this actually really lets the other parts of your head relax, get their blood homeostasis. So each area of your brain has, let's say it's run out of resources, because your brain actually runs on resources, and we give it time to replenish. When we do something else, we feel refreshed, we get back to the problem later, and we feel much more productive and much more able to actually take it on and solve it. So balance between those two, I think works best. Now, Charles also focused on the other thing we need to accept, which is we need to accept that we can't always be productive, right? And actually, I would argue that if you're always pushing yourself, and that's why I'm going against the discipline idea, if you're always pushing yourself to be productive, you're actually sabotaging your true potential, in my opinion. Let's say your brain is a giant orchestra, and it has 300 instruments, 300 players, instruments, so many variables. Who are you in this equation? You're just the conductor. Does the conductor play every instrument? No. The conductor says, okay, here's the piece. Here's how we're going to play it. All of you each take your parts, start playing along, and I will just conduct. I will just say, okay, this is a bit louder, this is a bit lower. Let your brain, let's say your brain, again, let me complete this metaphor, otherwise it's not going to make sense. So your brain is this orchestra, right? So now let's say you imagine you're the strict conductor, you start making more jerky motions, moving your figure around. What is that going to do to yourself? What is that going to do to the different areas of your brain? They're going to lock up, right? You're stressing your system. What does that mean in neuropsychological sense? It means that your emotional centers, let's say your amygdala, which is a tiny little almond-shaped area of your brain, it's really tiny. It starts screaming, right? And it starts screaming. Imagine right then and there, even if you didn't have a baby in the room, you just created a baby in the room, and that baby is not going to shut up and let you do your work. So I don't think that's productive. So this is why my approach is to actually, okay, I agree, Charles, be accepting, right? You have to accept the situation. You have to understand, you have to know yourself, and you have to be kind to yourself. If you're kind to yourself and you listen to yourself and you see, okay, what do I need right now? What would make me feel content? Maybe I need a walk. So that 10 minutes you took to take a break from your project, to go to the beach, to take a walk, it's actually much more productive than using discipline and saying, okay, now we'll stay and I will focus on this hard problem until I'm solved. Unless I solve it, I don't deserve a next Netflix episode or walk. I don't deserve anything. I'm a bad person. No, I don't think we should punish ourselves. I think psychology in the many decades has shown us that the best way forward is to actually water the plants. So to water the behaviors that are productive and to not water the other behaviors that are unproductive, that are negative and create a lot of issues. And someone has an open microphone and it's coming back to me. I think Charles.
Me?
Yeah. Thank you, Charles. So I think we have to take care of ourselves, and even more so now when we live in an environment with other people, we have to each take care of ourselves, and we have to be understanding, patient, and we have to also take care of each other. And we have to work together creatively to solve the problems that we have to solve. And some of us are more able than others to have peace and quiet. We have more resources. We're able to just go somewhere else to work. Some of us don't have that. So we still, young people starting startups now, new ideas, they have to work with live with their parents. There's dogs in the house. There's younger siblings in the house. So somehow these people, you need to find a way to work with these people. You need to find a way to honestly express your needs, what it helps you to do your job, and how your job is going to help you so you get out of their house, right? So there's a motivation for parents that are still hosting their kids, which is, in the crisis, it's a common thing in Greece. And it's getting in the way in a lot of young people, a lot of very potentially great people to show their greatness to the world. I hope I fully covered my basis on this. If not, I'll take further questions.
Phoebus, do you want to share with us a couple of the projects you've been working on lately, your remote projects?
Maria, I'm not doing this to self-promote at all. Actually, most of the client projects we work on are under NDAs, and our key concept is we care about the goal of the client, and we care about their client's client. So we actually, in the end, we care about adding true value to our society, and we're borderline for-profit and not for-profit. So I find that most of our team spends a lot of time just helping the community. And as you are as well, community leader, I started as a community leader in Greece in GRNet and HellenicNet, MIRC.gr. And what we did back then was to help others understand technology. I spent countless of hours helping other people understand how to make websites, how to do things, how to do things safely, how to help one another, how to build great things, how to help people in the end. And this is what it's all about. I'm not here for self-promotion. If anyone wants to look me up, they can find me by name. Everyone is a Google guru these days. And if you're not, you should be, because right now, most of your questions are answered out there. So I'll leave you this basic tip. Turn your question into an answer and type it in Google. Most likely you'll find your answer in the first 3 pages.
Awesome, Phoebus, thank you very much. Unless we have any more questions from our guests, we'll let you go. Let me just double check what's happening on Facebook Live. We have views there, but no comments and no questions. Again, Phoebus, thank you. Thank you to all of those of you who joined us again today. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Charles, Thanos, Theo, Elpida, it's the first time I see you, Spiros, Despina, Apollo, hi. Dimitri, thank you for joining us. I will also share with you all tomorrow's link. So tomorrow, instead of guests at home, we're having Pavlos Fikakis. He was one of our guest speakers. He's also a cook, and he did a very short, instead of a talk last month, he did a very short recipe, banoffee recipe. It was very successful, and people were asking if we're ever going to see Pavlos again for a workshop. So this time we put a workshop together, and we're going to do 3 dishes. So there's a salad to kick off with halloumi and peaches. And then there's a risotto with for the main course. And then he's also moving ahead for dessert with orange pie with ice cream. Sounds very interesting. So if you haven't signed up yet, check it out, sign up, and you'll also receive the Zoom link. If you and anyone who would be interested, be great to have them with us too. Phoebus, again, thank you. Have a great evening, everybody. I hope everybody recharged their batteries for a long weekend, and we're ready for a good weekend ahead. Shorter weekend, but hopefully a creative one. Thank you all.
Thanks for having me, Maria. Thank you all for joining in and sharing some of your thoughts as well and questions. See you all out there on the internet.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.